So it's Saturday, Grand Rising. We just booked a double plantation tour for today. We gotta be there in like an hour. So, double plantation tour. Yesterday was insane. Still don't really understand Mardi Gras, but guess I gotta do my research. So, got the double plantation tour. Yesterday we had the fucking vegan soul food, so good. Shout out to them. Gotta come back. Might get it tomorrow before I leave. So good. And yeah, so double plantation tour is all we got lined up. Tried to just get to this Whitney plantation because that's the one with the focus on slavery, since we listened to Frederick Douglass audiobook on the way here. But we got a double one, so we got the Whitney plantation and some other one, the Laura plantation, but the Whitney one is the one that's busting. They be selling out, so we about to see what's up. So, fuck with us.
So once again, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Oh, you're awake. Yeah, didn't do Bourbon Street last night, huh?
Oh, yeah, we did.
My name is Midge. I'm going to be your tour guide. Say hello to Earlene. She's going to drive us up to the plantations.
Hi, Earlene.
What's up, Earlene?
It's going to be a nice day. But the longest is. You got it.
Amazon.
The Nile, the Amazon, the Yangtze in China, and then the Mississippi. Now this river starts at Lake Itasca, Minnesota. 340 miles later, it reaches the Gulf of Mexico. And a drop of rain that falls in Minnesota takes 3 months to get to the Gulf. All those red lines are rivers flowing into the Mississippi. And you may remember, we had... Now the river hasn't flooded New Orleans since 1927. When we flooded in Katrina, and 80% of the city flooded, it wasn't from the river, it was from the lake. But in 1927, it flooded all the way to St. Louis, Missouri, and 700,000 people had their homes damaged or destroyed. It's coming down. All that pesticides, fertilizer, animal waste, it destroys the lake, the crabs and the shrimp and the oysters in the lake. So we try not to open the spillway. Third level of protection from flooding, our levee system. New Orleans is like a soup bowl, and the rim of the bowl are the levees. We're completely surrounded by levees. Good news about levees, they keep water out. Building in Louisiana, 51 stories tall. And when I say that to people from New York, they go, 51 stories? Oh, nothing. I knew it. Hofsky family, it was a Jewish family. They fed him, they gave him a job, they lived right down the street. 12,000 people took refuge in the dome. Now part of those acres used to be an old cemetery, the Girard Street Cemetery. You've heard of this, huh? At night, if the temperature's going to drop, it illuminates from the top going to the bottom. If the temperature's going to rise, it illuminates from the bottom going to the top. And there's a ball on the top. If it's green, it's clear. If it's red, it's cloudy. And it's about 11 of them are located right in here. Now we bury above ground, and we do that for... So this city was a swamp. So when you dig a hole, it fills in with water, and that's not conducive to burying somebody in the ground. Second reason is cultural. If you go to Paris or Barcelona, you're going to see cemeteries. One of the historians wrote a book about the tomb, not about Marie, but about the tomb. She documented 84 people in that one tomb, and that's what she could document. Now we passed by that big pumping station. It is not true that the levees failed in Katrina. The levees didn't fail. It was the canals that flooded the city. So then they don't swim in the lake. The lake is treacherous. In Orleans Parish, they have steps that go breakwaters, steps that go down. You get to the last step, you step off, you're in 3 or 4 feet of water. There was a in the world. 6,500 ocean-going vessels every year, and 50,000 barges. It's completely industrialized. There's petroleum refineries, chemical plants, aluminum plants, grain harvesters. And if you look down, you're going to see the levee. There's a big ship going out. There's the levee right there. And you can see how much land it takes up.
Which way is she pointing? Over here? Look at the levee.
Now those trees and vegetation, that's called the batcher. That's to prevent the water from going up against the levee. It can rise up the levee. On the left was the United States before the Louisiana Purchase. The green area is the Louisiana Purchase. 15 states got carved out of that land. But more importantly, it opened up the West. By 1819, Spain ceded Florida to the United States. The United States took Texas and California from Mexico. They traded with, is going to be Evergreen. A number of movies were made in Evergreen. The Free State of Jones, I think that's McConaughey, Matthew McConaughey. Django Unchained, Roots, The Beguiled, and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Pretty. And notice the trees. Most of these are live oak trees. They're called live oak because they're always green, 100 years old. Now you see the moss hanging from the tree. We're going to be getting off here. Now your tour is an hour and a half. It's mostly outside, and that's not going to be a problem because it's a nice day. There's no bathrooms on the tour, but there's bathrooms in the gift shop where we let you off. So your tour is going to start at 10:15. We're going to pick you up at 12:15. We're going to take people to Laura, then come back and pick you up at 12:15. Your tour guide will meet you in the gift shop. They'll make an announcement.
Okay. But now we that's a gift shop, and that's where the bathroom is.
Everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Harriet, and I will be your tour guide this morning. Guys, we have a few rules we have to follow before we get started, and that one is you cannot touch any of the artifacts because they are very fragile. Also, they do have some statues that are in the church. A lot of the tourists like to take pictures beside those, and that will be fine. Once the group starts moving forward, everyone has to start moving forward at the same time, and you cannot deviate from the group. You have to stay within the group. Cummings purchased this site in 1999, and it has taken 15 years to restore the buildings and the grounds that you all see here today. This museum is the only one in Louisiana that focuses on enslaved. Today we will be learning about those lives of those people that worked on this plantation and other plantations in Louisiana. We also have a combination of buildings and structures. So replica their heads are sitting on spikes. So whichever plantation that they was enslaved. Bank side of the river. They signed on as indentured servants with the French Company of the West. 200 other immigrants. They embarked on a journey. They crossed the Atlantic, but only 40 survived their journey. When they all got into Louisiana, that French Company of the West had gone bankrupt. So the Hydales had to learn how to survive in a difficult climate in South Louisiana. He's our director of research. So everything has been researched on the property was through Dr. Ibrahim said. Now if you look at your ticket, you will see the name and testimony of a person that was enslaved in Louisiana. And they are paired with one of the statues you see around the church. These statues was created by Woodrow Nash, an African-American artist from Akron, That of people that was enslaved on this property. Now, because of the overall production that has taken place on the property, that was more than 354 of these individuals. This blank space here is to also honor those that was not found recorded. But the names that you do see here, it was found recorded in sales, successions, inventories, and manumissions. Also, the names that you see here on this wall is all we know about these people, just biographical facts. Impossible for us to know how these people felt and thought. But most of the people that you do see here on this wall, they all was born in Africa. But as you can see, some of the names that are listed here are European names. That is because when the Africans were taken as captives, the slave traders changed their names and gave them new names. But we do have some names that remain African in origin. That's us know that they had some type of resistance during that time. Here we have Samba. Samba name means a second-born male of the Fugu tribe. He was from the Fulard Nation. He was placed on the lowest hold of the ship, the very bottom of the ship. That means any bodily fluids that was released right where they were. 20% of them died of unhealthy conditions, such as dysentery, scurvy, and to populate more slave men by breeding these slave women. Here we have this lady, her name is Julia Woodridge. She's talking about her mother here. Her mother was a slave. She said, Mama had 15 children, and none of them had the same papa. Every time she was sold, she would get another man. Mama had one boy by her mom, that was my Mrs. Brother's child. You see, every time she was sold, she had to take another man. Every time she was promised freedom, she was pregnant again. So she had 15 children after she was sold the last time. Any woman that had 15 children or more, they were called a good breeder. And that was just to populate and bring more slaves on the property. There's a narrative on one of the walls where it talks about this one man that had to impregnate these young girls. And if they wasn't pregnant at a certain time, they were sent back repeatedly until they were. So think about when a person... One to 2 million of these people were taken from the upper south, brought down to the lower south. They came in the interior in chains, meaning that they either were shackled by the wrists, the ankles, or around the necks. Now the people on the side of the wall, they died from those different diseases. But the people on this side of the wall, they died from dehydration, starvation, women that were in childbearing, women and men that died from a very older age. So they died from the walking from hundreds of miles from the upper south down to the lower south. Moriel. Miss Sybil was an activist, a civil rights leader. Miss Sybil married the first African-American mayor of New Orleans, Ernest Dutch Moriel, back in the 70s. Their son, Mark Moriel, became the third mayor of New Orleans back in the 90s. Mark now lives in New York, and he's the president of the Urban League. So a very, very prominent family came from this descendant here. Victor Haydel is also a first. He's the first African-American Haydel from that descendant of the family. His mother, Anna, was a mulatto, a mixed race. Victor Haydel was called the quadroon, meaning that he was 1/4 African-American, 3/4 European. He could have had a drop of African-American blood, 3/4 European. He would have still been an African-American. Some names that you see on a plaque, you see first names, would be very impossible for any African-American to try to find a descendant or a genealogy with just a first name. You need a first and you need a last name to be able to do that. And Victor Haydel has his father's last name. And how did he achieve that? He did not have birth certificates back then during slavery, but they had baptism certificates. So his age, the way they looked, whatever condition they may have been in, whatever type of skill or craft they had, that is how they were purchased. You had one man was purchased for $170. He was 50 years old. So his condition would have been his age. A lot of times when you're 50 years old or older, you cannot work in the field anymore, so you have to work more closer to the big house. We had another one sold for $350. He had one arm, a maimed arm. His price is going to be lower because of the condition. You had another one sold for $175. He had a hernia, his condition, so his price is going to be lower. But the difference is this. A 12-year-old was sold for $1,200. His age plays a major part. He's still young. You get more work out of him, so of course his price is going to be high. You had another person was sold for $1,525. That person had a skill. He had a craft. He was a carter and a plowman. And a carter is just someone that drives the horse carriages. So that's just a few that I pulled from here from the men category. So from 1 to 43, these are males. They call the Negroes. from 44 to 62. These are females. They call them aggressors. 25 years old. Sold for the least. She was sold for only $105. Today's term, we would call her and say that she has a mental illness. But on the plaque, they has her categorized as calling her an idiot. That's why she was sold for only $105. These people became someone's property. The people on the side of the wall, they were dehumanized when they was put on those ships. But the people on this side of the wall and on other plantations, they made them feel less than being human beings when they were put on these plantations. These people was purchased at a hotel called Basaloom of St. Louis Hotel in New Orleans. That same hotel stands today. Could have been renovated or something like that, but the name has been changed to the Army Royale Hotel in New Orleans.
Wow.
So if you ever seen this movie called Django Unchained, Samuel L. Jackson role he played, that's called an enslaved driver. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes more, guys, to read on this side of the wall. I'm gonna meet you all at this bell. Again, if y'all have any questions. The next memorial that we're going to be going into will give you a chance to kind of spread out and give you a little bit more time to read some of the narratives. Because these over here is more graphic than these over here. Now this bell here is not original to this plantation, but they did have bells on plantations. The bells was used for like an alarm clock. The bell was also used or rung a certain way if there was a runaway slave. When it was time to eat, when it was time to work or stop working. It was just merely used for communicating to the slaves. These kettles right here are called sugar kettles. That is what they cook and process the sugar in. Now once we get over here to the slave quarters over here, there's going to be more of those kettles, and then I can really give you the description of how they process and cook the sugar. Right now we're going to be going into this memorial here. You don't know where they at, so right where we be walking, you just never know.
So this is everything that stood on this plantation. Oh.
I'm about to tell it to you as soon as they come on. Afro-Louisiana History and Genealogy Database built by historian Gwendolyn Mitlow Hall. These narratives here are very, very graphic, more than what you read over here in the Wall of Honor. It talks about their everyday lives and also what they endured on these plantations. Also, what you learned about on the video, the Federal Writers Project, well, these were former slaves that was interviewed in the 1930s. So this is a visual that I want to show you before I let you also have weapons. So when I talked to you earlier about Charles DeLund, that was an enslaved driver, and they had weapons. This would be the overseer who he worked for. Now, if he didn't do what he asked him, he could be in the same position, but this is a male right here. So if this was that female, she was pregnant, that hole would be dug here, and the belly would be down in the hole. So this is the way she was punished, and I want to give you a visual of that. One more I want to show you, then I'm going to let you spread out.
Died about 3 hours after I was born. Pa always said they made my ma work too hard. I was born in the field. He said Ma was hoeing. She told the old driver she was sick.
Yeah. Oh, so you got out of the business? Oh, okay, that's what's up. Yeah.
More would be on the inside of these units. The reason why I say more, because sometimes you have more work than you have people, and they would have to rent or hire other slaves in order for them to help work out. They was not separated by female or male. They was not separated. There was a family in one unit and you couldn't put more people in it. It didn't matter. They put more people in. When they cooked, they had to cook on the outside because it would be too hot on the inside. What they cooked in was something similar to those kettles. That's open brand that's branded on their shoulder. That brand can mean that they have gotten just a little bit further and another plantation owner would see that, they would know exactly where that person belonged. How would they know that? An emblem or initial is branded on their shoulder. Just say you had cattle and all your cattle were branded and a gate breaks loose. Your neighbors would know exactly where those cattle belong. The third time that they're caught, this hamstring is cut. That is to slow them down. Because he didn't pick up what he's supposed to. If they didn't pick up, say they pick up so much last week and they didn't pick up the same amount or more, they could be punished for it as well. Their bell shows a good example. Just say if the slaves came out and that bell was rung for them to get up in the morning. If they woke up tired, wore out, which they were, to the plantation owner, that was a sign of laziness and they could be punished for it. They don't have time to go home and tend to those wounds before they come to work. They would have to work in those conditions. It looks short, but in the inside of it is very, very deep. And it's pulled by a mule, and they would take it to the sugar mill. They didn't have machines, so the animals act on as machines. Same way as when they would suppress the liquids from the cane. That was done by an animal as well, by a mule. So we're gonna move on. A slave pen is where Anna would have been put. Anna, and just say the other slave that came off the boat at the port of Orleans. They would have a slave pen put out, and they'll be inside of a pen prior to them being auctioned off. They don't belong to no one. Slave owners will be notified that they have slaves for them to be able to auction off by the highest bidder. During the time of slavery, when people was working, they didn't get paid, right? So everything was good. Nobody got paid. So when slavery was over, they was looking for that same thing. So what they did, they started using prisoners as slaves. If a person free walking on the sidewalk to an owner, not really an owner, walking on the wrong side of the street or the highway or the sidewalk, they were put in prison. They was also kidnapped and put in prison. They would have jails on plantations because it was about working and making money. Mass incarceration as well. So if y'all want to go, Harry. This blacksmith shop and this carriage house and also this pigeon coop is not original to the property. They were rebuilt, but it's built in the same place that it was in before. So that means in 1960 there was a hurricane called Hurricane Betsy, had torn these two buildings down, plus the pigeon coop I'm going to show you a little bit later. Try to revolt, try to escape, or try to rebel. So what better person you would use? You would use another. Somebody better raise their hand. I got it. Well, thank you. I tried it. Look, thank you. I'm not an alien. Now, rabbit gumbo I would eat only. The type of food that they cook is what we may call Creole food. The ingredients was influenced with Native American, African American, French, and Spanish. Those different dishes that was concocted together brought them things like gumbo, etouffee, jambalaya, smothered okra, and black-eyed peas. All the artifacts in here are original. All of it may not be original to the Whitney, but from other plantations. You're also going to see a ladle that's on the table. That ladle, those were ladles that were used to transfer those liquids, those hot liquids from kettle to kettle. This is a workable kitchen. We had a chef that cooked in his kitchen in 2012. His name was Michael Twitty. Michael Twitty is an African-American chef that mimics different cultures and meals all around the world. So there's a book also of him inside the museum if you want to see who he is. Bring them legs all the way up. In the dining room, the floors is made of bricks that the slaves made right on site as well. These bricks that you see out here, this is the back of the house. The bricks that you see here and the bricks that you're going to see in the front of the house, they were put in during the 19th century. The very first room that we're going to get to on the house, which will be in the front, you can see these doors going clear across. And we don't go upstairs because the house is starting to deteriorate. So for safety reasons, we don't go up. Here, any pictures that y'all want to take in the back, and then turn around the back wall with the men's bathroom in, there's a picture of this house. And the only tree that it shows. 2014, when they opened this up as a museum, Mr. Cummins invited people in this community, and those people were interviewed. Also, my mother's first cousin, which was my grandfather's niece, she bought 2 photographs of my grandfather, and those 2 photographs is hanging inside of the museum. I started working here in 2018, not knowing that I was going to find that photograph of my grandfather in there, and they did not know who I was when they hired me. So when I had my interview, had the job, my director told me to walk around and get a feel of the museum, and I did. And as I walked around and looking, and as I saw this picture, it was the same photograph that my mother had of my grandfather on a tractor cutting down cane. Later on, they told me that he would have been in this direction over here cutting cane. So when I saw that, I mean, I was very hysterical. Wasn't calm like I am now. The hairs on my arm stood up, and I'm like, my grandfather wasn't a slave, but why is he on the wall? She explained that to me by him being a sharecropper. So before I told her this was my grandfather, so I said, Miss Yvonne, this is my grandfather. And she was like, your grandfather? I said, yes, this is my grandfather. Upstairs. So I went upstairs and actually opened up the computer, and there was my genealogy on the computer. So when I saw these names that I could remember, I said, Ashley, I said, there's 2 names on this computer that I have photographs of. She was very interested in my great-grandfather because by his name, they didn't have siblings, anything like that about it. So I'm going to show you the picture of him. Now, my great-grandfather, where he lived on the other side of this white picket fence. His house was catty-corner to the store, and there was another white house across from the store. The house that my grandfather lived in that I thought was his house, but never was his house, there's 2 white houses that's close to the museum, but the one that's further out would have been the house that my grandfather lived in, house that I went in as a child and everything. And you can go to jail, but I don't have a history of knowing that that's what happened to him. Here in this community, Caucasian, African American, same thing, bloodline related. But I have 2 brothers that flipped the script. They married 2 Caucasian women, so we back in. This would be my grandfather, his son. His name is Florence Pochet. Now this is called returning the change. After slavery was over, the same gentleman that did the sculptures at the church, and the same gentleman that also did this work. So this is called returning the change. Right this way.
Yeah, we got the view. Is this a plant truck? What's going on? I'm fucking with it. All vibes. Okay. Just by the size of this place, I'm like, it's probably good, but they closed. Big close. Back in Dallas. Got back yesterday. Didn't get the vlog because I had to drive. And niggas was just burnt, but I'm back. Glad to be back. So grateful, man. Fucking, I'm just thanking God, like, bruh, like, from where we came to phones and cameras and shit to, you know what I'm saying? It ain't all the way there, but shit, you gotta work with what you got, man. So I'm back, feeling grateful, back in the city life, moving with purpose, you know, so it's whatever, but thankful, man. So I had to go pick up some shit from the UPS thing, put all this shit together, and, you know, make it do what it do. Gotta love it. So I just picked up my packages. I feel like my life is back on track for a little bit. Got everything I need to move files and footage to the computer, so we're good. Time to get to editing, throwing shit together. So see you on the next one type shit.